Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of SchmoeTalks. That is right, we are back after our first rough pilot episode to kind of figure out the format of the show. We come in for our second episode and completely ignore the planned format for the show because there is big news in the Schmoedown world, and it is just too hard to ignore. My name is Aaron Knoll. I am the host of this show. Thank you guys for coming back and watching episode 2. We hope you guys enjoyed the first episode, our talk about the awards, our breakdown kind of how the format of the show will work. And today, obviously, we have big news. Last Friday, the free agency special for the Schmoedown happened. The teams got blown up for the most part, and each manager got to bring back their 3 favorite competitors, attempt to sign them, maybe bring in some new ones. And I am not alone today. I have 2 very exciting guests who are also potential draftees for these factions joining me to break down and analyze how this will work. Joining me first, he is no stranger to things TMG related. He is a competitor for the moment across all things TMG trivia, including our currently airing Geek Tournament, which will be back on the air whenever we get a chance to edit them. It's just kind of how it goes. He is Amaru Moses joining us from the car. How are you doing, man?
Uh, I'm I am doing well. Y'all will be getting all angles of my face as I try to avoid the sun and move my arm into comfortable positions. Um, but I'm good. I'm ready to talk this free agency.
Absolutely, man. So, going into this, obviously, without giving away too much, I'm sure you have your favorite faction where you'd like to go. Does the overall news, before we break it down, excite you? Looking at all the potential options and the foundations for these teams they've built.
It does because I was waiting to see where basically the first 3 rounds of the draft, because that's what basically the free agency is, how that
Yep.
shakes out. Because in my head, it's like, all right, do I think I'm going to move up? Do I think I'm going to move down? Do I think I'm going to get drafted at all based on who has what? And looking at the locks now, I can kind of see, okay, this faction may need a focused IG player a little more than before now, so they might be more likely to pick me up or pick somebody else up. So I was definitely watching on Friday to kind of gauge where everything was going.
Absolutely. Well, we're excited to have you, man. We'll go ahead and drop you to the back just for the moment. And we'll go ahead and bring in our second guest. Speaking of focused IG players, that's what he's pitching himself as. And this is his first appearance on anything TMG related. We're excited to have him. You definitely know him, though, because he's found his way onto everything he possibly could Schmoedown related outside of the Schmoedown himself as of now. Mr. Jesse Swift is joining us. Jesse, how's it going, man?
It's going great. And speaking of first times, this will be the first time I am introduced as just Jesse Swift, dropping the gimmicks, dropping the facade, just giving you the most real, authentic Swifty.
Absolutely, man. First off, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you. You're our joint first guest that we've brought on the show. And I'll kind of pitch the same question to you, man. Obviously, without giving away too much of your personal thoughts, I'm sure you have favorite factions you'd like to go to. So how does seeing this free agency special and who ended up where go down? How does it kind of stand out to you?
Well, as one of my friends in the after show biz, we were talking back and forth about free agency a little bit, and there wasn't a lot of surprises, but when we got surprises, I thought they were pretty good. I think for me, one of the most exciting thing was seeing some of the returning players, like seeing JTE make his return, as well as Drew McWeeny. So very excited to see. I think a lot of these guys were in the early seasons, and it'll be interesting to see if they can hang with what I consider to be the new difficulty level, because not just Inner Geekdom, everything's gotten harder, because if you just, kept at the same difficulty level every year, you'd be having like perfect round after perfect round, and we wouldn't get to witness the fun and the struggle. So these guys are going to have to study up to hang with the current league, I think.
Absolutely. That is to be said for sure. We'll go ahead and bring back in Amaru, and we'll change that for formatting reasons. So here's how we're going to do this, guys. Not only are we going to be breaking down the 8 factions and their first 3 picked, we're also going to give opportunities to both our competitors to kind of do a brief little interview, since this is SchmoeTalks, and that is the point of the show. But first, we're going to go ahead. I've put them in a particular order, and we're going to go ahead and start with 2 factions that kind of had an intertwined selection here. The first, we'll talk about both of them in conjunction, and I apologize for the crude editing, but it reflects how crudely and how quickly these deals went down. We'll start with the Den, who picked up Paul Preston and Ben Goddard, 2 returning members to the Den, and Kate also picked up Marisol McKee, who was very quickly traded to Corruption for Shannon's first and second round draft picks, meaning Kate now has the opportunity to pick 3rd, 8th, and 9th in the draft that is happening this upcoming Friday, and vice versa. We will talk about Corruption, who now has 4 of their main 5 back. She obviously, on the night of Spectacular, said Mike Kalinowski, Chance Ellison, and Adam Collins were technically forced to stay, not that any of them would want to leave, and now she has her 4th, Marisol McKee, back. Obviously, two very interesting scenarios for both of these managers. Amaru, I'll go ahead and go to you first, man. How are you feeling about both of these?
I'm not sure yet, because I keep hearing conflicting things that Kate made a very bad decision getting rid of Marisol. But if we're going to be true about it, in that draft, the early rounds are the only rounds that are known quantities. Like after maybe round 3, you're starting to get into people who haven't played much or you haven't seen play at all. And Jesse mentioned it, the new categories, the new questions, the new movies, they're going to even a lot of the playing field. So having 3 picks in basically the first round, I think is going to be killer for
hit a rough patch.
I think so. Just so you know, it muted. I don't know if you muted yourself or if it muted you.
No, I muted myself. So that was it.
Okay. All right. Jesse, we'll go ahead to you, man. Again, we'll before I start posing questions, brief thoughts on what you think about both of these factions.
Well, I just gotta say, with Corruption already having her, with Shannon having her top 4, I think just call them Corruption and the Ninja Turtles. I think because she's got, and man, I'm looking at there's so many great players in the league, and just looking at how everything came through at the end. But I mean, I would be remiss not to say, damn, Shannon's got a crew together already. Like you look at some of them, and like some places there's some strengths and some that maybe a little bit weaknesses. She's got top players all across the board. She's got 2 championship match represented, two championship players represented in her faction already, and I'd be really curious to see how Kate's plan plays out through the draft and through the rest of the season, because I think a lot of us that are trying to judge her for her trade decision don't know what's going on in her head, don't know who she has her eyes on, where her target is set. So I think it might be a little premature to say all that. So let's give it another 7 days or a couple weeks and see where the dominoes fall.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's a little quick to judge Kate for this because, again, the draft will happen this upcoming Friday. We don't really know what she has planned, but I saw on the Schmoedown Facebook page, somebody put up a post where it was like, basically, who do you think are like roughly the 8 or 10 best players left that'll go at the top of the draft? And if you look at the lists that the fans are putting up, there are overall very solid, interesting lists, and obviously, not that it's a shocker to anyone by this point, so we can start saying names. All 3 of the top Star Wars contenders in Dimolanta, Laura Kelly, and Molly Damon were not signed. When we look at IG, Mara Kanopik, who has a title shot, first match of the year, with the exception of the undercard, did not get signed. And so there are some very high-ranking, interesting players that are in that top 10. Kate has an opportunity to pick up 3 of them for herself. And so obviously when you look at her two now, Paul Preston and Ben Goddard, whether or not that's like the A team or if she goes for Rachel Silvestrini again and reunites the Pride, who are 2-1, solid record, all things considered. Probably the second best new team after Final Exam. It leaves her a lot of wiggle room to kind of figure out what she wants to do and to get in those inner geekdom and Star Wars players that she is lacking for the moment. Obviously, Ben can play there, but it's not probably going to be his main go-to league. So again, it is interesting, but I think she's the hardest of them to judge just because we don't really know what her plan is. I think once we see her 5 and we get an idea of, okay, this is why she gave Marisol away to get, because that's what it is, really. It's Marisol goes away to secure these 3 players for her. Are these 3 going to be worth what Marisol could have brought? And I think if she picks up some good Star Wars and IG players, then absolutely it could be. Especially with 2 with potential title shots, 4 really right on the line there. It could be very interesting. And in terms of corruption, I think the only obvious downside to this trade is that Kate gave Shannon right what she wanted. Yeah. She's got in those 4 players, she's got 3. I mean, she's got a singles champ. She's got 3 very solid singles players potentially. All their records are a little iffy in terms of the wins, but in terms of knowledge, very solid. She's got 2 great teams. And she's got, obviously, Collins is yet to play IG, but if we go back to fan league matches, he's definitely got experience in IG. So she's got 3 potential IG players. And obviously, one of them just went for a title shot, and one's a former champ, 2-time champ, I believe, in IG. And so that's like, without even thinking about the draft, that's a hell of a lineup to start with. So my first question to you guys is, obviously she has those 4, and I'll start with Jesse on this. She has those 4. Does the fact that she misses the first 2 rounds of the draft affect her more than people are thinking, even though she has these 4 to start?
I mean, so it's interesting because if we would have gone with this season's, correct me if I'm wrong, was it 10 people on a faction this season?
It's 12 now total. 12.
No, I mean last season.
Last season was 10. Yes.
Last season was 10. So I think there could be an argument that she has almost half of her, she basically does have half of her faction back, and that can really make a whole season if they play as well as they did last year. But now we're getting into having 12 faction members, and I think you really have to weigh out how all your different members are going to earn you points. And yeah, you secured a really solid third of your team, but who's to say that negatively the next 8 might really weigh you down? You don't know. There's so many names out there, so many talents, and if you keep giving up, your picks, I don't know. It's not a for sure thing, but I think it was a risk, and Shannon is very smart. Obviously, it got her, manager of the year, but it could come back to bite her.
Yeah, Amaru, what are your thoughts?
All right. Hopefully, seeing how well this lag is going, because I can't tell, because I can hear y'all fine.
Audio's clear, man.
I think she's gonna be I think she's gonna be all right, because one, she was the one who picked up Collins last year, and nobody knew who he was. And second, there are so many more matches going on this year that you can get a better look at your bottom 2/3. Quote unquote. But with having that solid 4, which will be great in every division, and they're probably going to get most of the matches, even then, having that solid core and then being able to play with the rest I think is going to work out for her. And I think it's going to work out for Kate too, because looking at who she has, or the possibility of who she can draft, she has a great singles player in Paul Preston. He has just had the worst of luck. Ben is a pretty good IG player. She can then pick up the a 1A or a IG player, a top Star Wars, and somebody to pair with Paul. So I think both of them actually made out pretty well in this trade.
Could I ask really quick what you guys think is the chances that she gets one of the Dragon Con players?
Amari, if you want to go first, go ahead.
The chance is high because you also have Damon and Molly Damon and Laura Kelly. Because you have both of them there as well, then it could go. She has what? There's 3 Dragon Con players that a lot of people are talking about. She has five top tier Star Wars player to pick from, so she could go anywhere with that. 6 because you also have Scrimshaw, which everybody's forgetting about. 7 if you want to include Ace. There is a plethora of Star Wars players in this draft that she can choose from. So,
not counting rookies, pretty much there should be a prime Star Wars leaguer for every team, unless people start getting greedy.
Yeah, and I would even venture to say like players who maybe overlooked. I would say maybe with the exception of Quevedo, and that just seems like he kind of got tossed in there without really understanding the game fully. I think that was one of the few real drops of management from Roxy last year. He didn't seem like he understood the game very much. With the exception of him, I think all 8 players in that tournament are valid. Even someone like Adam Witt, who went 0-2. If Scrimshaw is being talked about for his knowledge at 0-4, I think Adam Witt's a very solid shout of a Star Wars player. Also, Sean Sullivan, who got the win against Witt and then unfortunately lost to Molly Damon. I think there is a chance she could get one of the Dragon Con players. Now, I haven't seen Dragon Con. I know there is the digital version of it happened on the Damon's channel, Star Wars Explained. So I am curious. I want to check that out at some point before we start getting those Star Wars matches in there. I'm very curious to see what the differential is between Dragon Con and the Schmoedown, because they're going from knowing everything to really deeply knowing the films and also the format. One of the things I've heard is that a lot of Dragon Con is multiple choice, which is something they'll only have for one round in the Schmoedown at the cost of points. And we saw earlier this year, I believe it was Jim Vejvoda's Inner Geekdom debut. It was either his Inner Geekdom or his singles. He played really solid in one of those matches, but he kept going to multiple choice and he kept saying like, oh, for safety. That safety cost him the game, when he probably could have gotten that win. Unfortunately, I just forget which one it was. And so I think it's going to be interesting. It's not just recall. With Dragon Con, it's triggered recall. Whereas with the Schmoedown, it's full on recall. They're going to have to know it. Amaru, go ahead and do what you need to do, man. Sorry, I was trying to acknowledge it without saying. Amaru will be back in just a little bit, but myself and Jesse, we're going to go ahead and move into the next faction, unless you had anything to add about them.
I was just going to apologize for derailing, but I think looking at everyone that got picked, there is, and obviously they weren't there for the free agency, but there's a lack of Star Wars representation, which is interesting with Christian and just a lot of the big players saying that this is the year for the Star Wars division. And so I think a lot of the excitement around the Star Wars division is yet to be seen or realized. So I think that's going to be a big blow up on draft day.
Yeah, I think the comparison I've heard is the Star Wars division this year will kind of be like what the Inner Geekdom was last year, where we really saw talents we didn't expect come out of the woodwork. I think this year even more so, because like last year we saw players like Janine and the why am I forgetting the names? The Real Reject guys, John and Greg.
Yes.
Move over when no one would have expected them to, maybe. And despite the fact that those 3 examples ended in losses, all 3 played very solidly for first attempts. I think this year the Star Wars League will be very much the same, except most of these are going to be names that are not known at all. I don't think we're going to see very many players that aren't established Star Wars players try and make that move over. Maybe just Big Talk or Bateman, since the 60 days thing seems to be something he spent 6 months flirting with. But outside of that, I
tell Bateman to, hopefully I get drafted, but come after me in the second half of the season, see if he gets like drafted over to doing some IG matches, and I'll show him that 60 days does not beat 27 years.
That's exactly it right there. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the next faction here. And we'll go ahead and go to Roxy Stryer and the new team name, the Stars, picking
We'll be
up.
the first people to get that right consistently.
Yep, the Stars. Picking up, honestly, the three most predictable picks: Jeff Snyder, Mark Andreyko, Alex Damon. But just like with Corruption, this is an example of obvious doesn't mean wrong, does it?
No, I mean that's three champs. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Like what on what earth can you draft can you pick better than that for free agent? Or I guess they pick her, but
Yeah. Either way,
you can't land much better than that. If you say I got three members on my team and they're all three champions, unless they're representing like three separate belts, I think is the only thing that might be like a hair more impressive. But I can't argue with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think Roxy's biggest problem last year, and I'm very curious to see how the draft goes for her more than anything. Is Roxy ended up finishing in third, which is probably the second most impressive feat behind Shannon coming first. But that came on the heels of, whereas we talked about this last week as well, whereas Shannon had, I believe, 7 of her 10 players, and that's not counting Bonnie as the 11th who got traded, score points for her faction. Because even though someone like Hoik didn't win, he got the MVP from the free-for-all, so he counts. He got points for her. Roxy really only had 3 main points getters, with that fourth kind of being Stacey Howard, who got the 2 wins in her matches. But the depth that Roxy put forward, whether it be Cavedo and Star Wars, as we mentioned earlier, she put out Jared Habon in teams that didn't go too well. Jim Vejvoda played 3 divisions last year and didn't get a single point. That's what hurt her chances. And I think it's going to be interesting. She's got her, no pun intended, she's got the stars. Now it's who makes up the rest.
And she's going to have to be careful because this year, those losses aren't just zeros
right
anymore. You could be losing points with like TKOs and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I forgot the exact breakdown, but there's people that modernized last season's point system with the current updated version. I forgot what the standings are, but I don't think she would have been in a better position, but from everything I hear listening to Roxy on SEN, and then also I was just in the middle of watching Rundown, she said that this has become like her 24-hour full-time job, and she is doing the research and putting in the work, because I think that obviously she's been able to stick onto the ones that have brought her confidence, but I think that confidence was shaken and rattled a little bit by, like what you said, some of the other losses. So now she's got to make sure that at worst she has people that are going to make her points, like maybe not run away and be like the champions and give her 7-point matches, but she can't afford to lose points, especially when you have teams like Corruption out there and the way that they're shaping up.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to pose a question to you, since this does involve a little bit of draft analysis. I just mentioned him, Jim Vejvoda. Played 3 matches last year. Unfortunately, lost all 3. He played as a part of a new team, the Wicked, with Jared Habon. He played singles. He played Intergeekdom. Do you think that's somebody that Roxy should go back for and try and manage up a little bit more? Because I think you can see over the course of the 3 matches, he is coming to a better understanding of the game. And he certainly has the knowledge. At one point, he was a number 1 contender with his former team, top that. And I guess this could expand to other managers too if Roxy doesn't get him. But is this someone you invest in and try and get there? Or, not to be mean because he's a person, is it a bit of a lost cause?
So what I would say with that is I think that it is a bit of off-season research. And obviously she is doing her research and she has more of a relationship than any of us watching on the sidelines. So if I were her, I'm not sure. It kind of depends on what options I have in front of me, because eventually it's all about that W. But if you are confident in their base knowledge, maybe you just pull them to the side for a little bit and just, run them through the ringer and reevaluate what their potential is in the league. And if you think that they're up to snuff and if that they can hang with the big dogs in there. And I would think that a lot of the people that are taking some of these heavy losses have taken it to heart. I know that I would, and just really hit the books for whatever faction they're going to end up on. And I think, maybe Roxy's the best case because he can, specifically come to her and say, listen, I know that I messed up on this, and these are my weaknesses. I've been studying those so hard. They're now my strengths. So if I get some of these categories in round 2, I'm just going to keep them because I know them as good as anything else. I think growth is a huge aspect of the season to season elements that we see with the Schmoedown.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other question I'll pose related to Roxy before we move on is in a minute we're going to talk about another faction that made sure they held on to their celebrity member. Roxy also had a celebrity member in Mr. Chris Jericho, who, while he certainly brought the entertainment value the Schmoedown and its fans like to have, did go 0 for 2. Now, obviously, the viability of, does he only want to play for Roxy does come into it. Is Jericho someone you go for in the draft?
Me personally, again, it's a conversation. And I would say, listen, Chris, I respect you and I respect all your accomplishments outside the Schmoedown. However, inside the Schmoedown, where your points are my points and we share these wins and losses together, I need to know that you're not going to get TKO'd. I need more than to just headline a main event. Roxy had that big controversy about what was it? The co-main events and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think that I would propose to Chris and say, are you willing to put a fire under your ass, or are you in here for the fun of the game? Because if you are, that's great. There's plenty of people that are in here. But I lost to Shannon this year. I'm in it to win it. And I can't afford someone that just wants to play the game. I need belts and I need people that are going to win. And I think that's a hard conversation to have because I know that Roxy loves Chris and vice versa. And I think Jericho is an awesome personality. And I think that you can really put him anywhere. But I think if we're talking draft lists, I have him somewhere towards the bottom because you want to have maybe one person that draws in the crowds. But
Sure.
0 and 2, like you said, sometimes the knowledge or the score doesn't justify the base knowledge. But I think maybe he needs to hit the books.
Absolutely. Well, there we go, guys. The stars, the expected 3, but a great foundation. We'll see definitely what she builds on with the draft. And then we'll go ahead and move on to the first faction in which the actual signings brought a little bit of question amongst fans. We have Coy Jandreau and the Quirky Mercs officially signing back on William Bibiani and Brendan Meyer. No shock there. They were teams champions this year and both had solid singles runs. But that third signing, Mr. Kevin Smith, he is 2-0. He does want to play again. But that brought an interesting debate we'll get into in just a minute. First off, initial thoughts. What do you think?
So I've said this before on shows, and I hope this doesn't alienate me from getting picked up by any other factions. But I said Coy's, the Quirky Mercs seems to me to be possibly one of the most fun factions to be a part of. And I say that from a place of just loving watching Coy and what he does in the past with Marvel Movie News and Collider Heroes and stuff like that. And, he's got a solid team under his belt, but again, not a winning team. It's not Snyder and Draco. And then Kevin Smith, so he's got somebody to bring in the names, and Smith is 2-0. But no offense to Flirt and Flaus or Sheridan, is there any one of us that couldn't go toe to toe with Brett Sheridan in any league and come out on top of that? I don't really think that's proving ground. I love Kevin Smith, huge fan. I watched Comic Book Men over and over again, reruns. I mean, obviously he's not on that show that much, but he helped build that. And I love Clerks. He does have really good knowledge, and I think if he can, put the joint down for a couple minutes and really put in some studying, I think that there's a lot of potential with Kevin Smith. Do I put him in my top 3 drafts? I don't at all. So I understand Koi's decisions. I love Koi Jandrew, but none of the decisions that I would have made myself or hoped for in his position, because obviously these are people making their own choices. But
yeah, fair enough. Amaru, obviously we're on the quirky mercs now. If you want, before you go into that, your brief rundown on what you thought of the Stars 3 picks. That's what we talked about while you were out.
All right. Quick check. How's my lag? How's everything?
Good. Audio's good.
Perfect. Videos, whatever. Stars went chalk. I mean, we all saw that coming. Get the champ. Stars went where they were going to go. So we knew that was happening. Koi, with Shazam, he had that one I was expecting. They were a couple of not so easy 2 and 3 pointers in the championship away from winning, and retaining those belts. Oh, there you go.
It's coming back slowly.
Not back. I don't know. We'll see how that works out.
You're good. You're back now.
With Kevin Smith, it's you're guaranteed somewhat the spectacular events. You're guaranteed the pay-per-views, which I believe now are more points. So, and he's shown he's capable, but he's a busy man. So you're not gonna get much out of him outside of that, I don't think. So I see why you would take him, because it's Kevin Smith. I mean, come on, and he's shown he can answer questions. But maybe having 12 players instead of 10, he was like, I can take this risk of having the huge star who's going to play less, because I have more people to fill in and give me more points somewhere else. Maybe.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely fair. Again, Bibiani and Meyer, I think, were a surefire pick before this was, a pick 3. The 3 of them clearly developed a good camaraderie, and they developed a good relationship. You could see that on screen. And so I think it makes sense that they go back. They have a record, I think, of 8-2. The only times they've ever lost are in title matches. They had a run and lost to the Founding Fathers, and they had a run, won, and then lost to the Odd Couple. So I certainly think they're a great way to quickly get back into the team's title picture. And both are really solid single players. Bibbs is a former champ. Meyer has had 2 good runs through tournaments, just not quite gotten there. So good picks. Yeah, Kevin Smith, obviously he is 2-0, and obviously, again, much love to Brett, but I think almost anyone could have beat Brett. As somebody who's been around in the fan leagues and the fan community for a long time, people may not know this. When there was an original just won the fan movie trivia Schmoedown, Christian actually reached out to them and got Brett a match in it, which he then lost to a fan. So again, much love to Brett. He's very entertaining. I'd love to see him play, kind of like the Real Rejects. Even if they're not winning, they're still great. But Kevin Smith is 2-0, and he still played well in that match, is the point I was trying to make. Even though Brett could be looked at as an easy win, especially because he was so focused on the character aspect of that match, Kevin still played well. And put him in an opportunity where he could have knocked him out. And it was on Brett to keep himself in it at that point. So yeah, I think Amaru's analysis is good. He does bring the show aspect. He'll get you, under either undercards or main events at the 3 live events they're doing this month. When he wants to play, he's automatically going to get one of those because he's Kevin Smith. Now, the interesting thing that people are talking about with this, which I'll pose to you guys for the question for this one, is Kevin Smith gets picked at the sacrifice of Mara Knopic. Now, obviously, we don't know if that offer got made and she denied it for one reason or another. She wasn't signed by another faction, so that does leave an interesting thought piece there. But Mara Knopic was an Inner Geekdom player that Coy, they've said off Schmoedown, they do have a personal relationship. They do know each other. Coy drafted her in good faith as the third pick in his draft last year. Then obviously health reasons stopped her from playing. But before the year was up, we knew she has a set title shot, first match of the year against Chandru. Was it a good idea to sign Kevin over her? Obviously taking out the player choice of it all, there didn't seem to be any reason that she would reject him, seemingly as of now. Do you think it was a good idea? I'll start with Amaru.
So I missed the part where Christian announced that Kevin was signed, and I was like, okay, Quirky Mercs has a pick left, and they were like, no, Kevin Smith was signed. I was like, wait, what? I thought he was getting Mara. I thought Mara was staying, and I know you have the thoughts about health. Whether or not that can keep her in, whether or not she can play. But you have the title shot automatically. She was already in the faction. And at least the first match of the year, and the way Coy is, I'm one that he's going off of faith and going off of, I'm looking at the bright side. I think she's going to play. If unless she said no, it would have been a better decision to me to pick up Mark.
Yeah, Jesse?
Yeah, like I said, Kevin Smith would not have been my choice. I think Mara is much more of a known quantity and an impressive one at that end. Wouldn't it be a great way to start out your 2021 Schmoedown season with a title match and a potential 7 points? And, hopefully not I can't, against anyone, I can't see Mara getting knocked out, like a total knockout in a match. So
right.
I think it'd be worth the risk to go up against it, and we'll see where she ends up. Anyone would be lucky to have her playing IG for them, and we could end up with an upset right in the very beginning of the year, and that would be.
Would that be an upset though?
Well, I'm not saying. Let me say he defended he defended his belt, kept it. I'm not saying people would be upset about it, but I mean it would be unexpected. Just a big event.
I personally would quantify it as an upset, only because it's been 2 whole years since she's participated, and the game has taken a step up in that point. Quite literally, right after she walked away, Kevin Smets came in and tore a path for what is now the new level of IG. And so I think, yeah, it would be an upset. It's not like a hugely shocking upset if it happens, because she's certainly shown that she has the skill level. She beat Kalinowski and she beat Rachel Cushing, who are 2 of the greats considered by most fans for IG. So it's not going to be hugely shocking. But considering Chandru has the hype of first person since Inman to defend it, I think it would quantify as one.
And Rue has seen that. You've seen that list. You've seen the movie list, and there's a lot of things since Mara's been in IG. And if I'm her, I'm sweating a little bit because Chandru's known for a while. He's been in it for a while. He might have a little less studying to do.
Yeah. So that's also a reason why I don't think it's gonna be that. I don't consider it an upset if she wins. That's one reason, right, because I do believe the entirety of IG is a level playing field with the new list and the new movies in. I really do think it's level, and a lot more of what do you get on that wheel when you spin it, what categories are you getting, because if you go pure geek, okay, well, things will play out the way it will, but if you start throwing in those new fringe categories, who's going to know what, and who's going to have what? You got to decide what slices you're gonna shore up and which ones you're gonna leave to the wayside right now. But on top of that, Mara has been next to the man who is in everything those entire 2 years. A man who was looking to get into IG as well. So even though she hasn't played, she knows what's going on and has had a passenger seats to somebody who's seen the levels that the show's gone into. So that's one reason I also like altogether wouldn't consider it an upset.
Absolutely. No, I would agree with you. I think either approach is interesting. So before we move on, I have to ask, unless I missed something, is this IG list public or is that just the potential players? I don't want to go anywhere we shouldn't.
Ruse,
not public.
Not public. All right. So we're not going to dig into that one. That'll be an interview for a later time. So yeah. So with that, unless either of you have anything else to add about the Mercs, we'll go ahead and move on. All right. So with that, we'll go ahead and get into our first little brief interview with both of these gentlemen. Jesse, I'm going to drop you to the back for just a minute, and we'll go ahead and talk to Amaru, man. So obviously, you've been doing the rounds. You know, you've been in the fan leagues for a little bit. I believe you had said on Backstage you're at just over a year now in the fan leagues.
Yep, a year and a couple months probably.
Okay. So you've been doing the rounds, you've been going on shows, you've been talking to a lot of different people, kind of putting yourself out there. Obviously, you did get that exposure being brought on Backstage, playing very well, might I add, in that match they kind of put together for you guys. You and Jacob, I'd say, were definitely the standouts from that. So my first question to you is, what are you looking at in terms of the step up, right? Obviously, you've played in a lot of different fan leagues. You've participated in our league, TMG Trivia, still in the active airing tournament. We won't spoil where you end up or where things go, but what are your thoughts about taking that step up potentially from what you've seen in terms of the fan leagues to going into Schmoedown IG?
For me going in, I'm just looking to make sure I belong. That's really it. Whether or not that ends up with a championship shot, whether or not that ends up with a match or two, I'm looking to go in my first year, if I get in there, with people saying, oh yeah, he's here to stay, he's one of the top players in IG, and with a win or with a loss, he's somebody you do not necessarily want to see across from you, because whoever you are, you can lose.
Yeah.
But I've said it before, it's the Schmoedown. Anybody can lose at any time. So
absolutely. My next question to you is specifically sticking with IG. Does the fan league hype help or worry you a little bit? We've seen what it can do with someone like Kevin Smets when he came in and demolished. But I also think last year we saw a case of where the hype can hurt you with Robert Parker. For anyone who doesn't know, Robert used to be a part of TMG with Movie Battleground. So he's someone I do know quite well, and he definitely knows his stuff. But we saw last year he went in, he had that loss to Chance, and that essentially tanked a lot of the hype I think people seem to have for him, so much so he didn't even get nominated for IG Player of the Year, with flavors with the likes of Brandon Hanna and Alex Damon getting in over him. Do you think it matters at all, or is it something that helps or hurts you in any kind of way?
It matters, but it's like any type of hype you get. There's the hype that's in the forefront that goes off of recency, that goes off of the millions of comments that you see where people only pick some of them, and people are saying Robert is a bust, and then you have people who go behind like, but then you hear people backing up like you have no idea what you're talking about. So it can hurt in that way, but I think that the fan league hype has done nothing. I think fan leaguers going in have had 100% record, because if you really just take away all of the hoopla and, like, again, not getting nominated for the awards, that's, again, a lot of it is recency bias.
Yep. No, I would agree.
Robert lost to the person who won the tournament, demolished the Middle Earth exhibition, and demolished the other two people he played before Chance. There's not one fan leaguer who has gone into the Schmoedown and not represent. So, like,
no.
The only thing that could go against it is if I come in and I completely just do nothing, which I don't believe is going to happen. So for me, I usually with hype kind of suss through all the noise that's out front and then look into what actually is happening with that hype and why is that hype there. Robert, Marisol, Adam, Paul, Chance. There's not one of them you can say has not shown they belong. So I'm hoping to continue that, and I think it will do nothing but help. Uh, yeah, I think it'll do nothing but help.
Absolutely. And then one more question before we move on here. Obviously, we know from the fan leagues, you can play in singles and teams. Your specialty may be IG, but you're very good at teams in singles. Anyone who watches TMG Trivia knows he beat me in teams. And I wouldn't say I'm that bad of a player, but you definitely have the track record there of performing very well. Where is your interest level at in moving over? Like, if you go in and there's the open door, do you take it, or is your focus just to really establish IG?
I'm taking it. I would love to play in all three divisions. IG is the focus. IG is the one where I'm trying to set myself up as somebody who people know as an IG player. But I believe I have enough skill overall to be able to play. I'm not going to say I'm going to win. I'm not going to say I'm going to win belts. I can if I'd be able to, especially in teams if I'm paired up and I get good runs. Because if you're watching the fan leagues, you will see I've had good singles runs. But it's not something I am going in looking to dominate. I'm just going in looking to be like, yes, I'm an IG player, but I'm not only an IG player. And I'd love to play all three divisions for sure.
Absolutely. All right. Well, obviously, Amaru, we've had you on TM Trivia a bunch. I think you're a great guy, a great player, and as I would to all the people I know going in, obviously, we wish you the best of luck. But we're not getting rid of you. That sounded very outro-ish. You're going to be here. We'll go ahead and bring Jesse back in, and we will move into our next couple of factions. But guys, if somehow you seeing this show above any other Schmoedown related show, first off, that's just wrong. It's our second episode. But go check some of the other ones out. Check out other TMG stuff that Amaru's been on. Guys got the goods, and I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing him in it. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next faction on the list, which is the second place finishers, Winston Marshall Swag, with that devil grin. I don't think they could have picked a better picture for him right there. And Winston, despite the fact that there was a lot of talk about who his third could have been, and it almost seemed like among some fans a foregone conclusion that final exam weren't a thing anymore. He picks up Chandru Dandapani, the current IG champ, and he brings Paul Oyama, former singles champ, and Lon Harris with him, seemingly reuniting final exam after a stellar year last year. I'll go ahead and start with Jesse on this one. What are your thoughts on Swag's 3 picks?
I mean, who's surprised that the manager that helped Chandru, get and keep his belt, that he sticks with? I think they are very much so a proven commodity, and we love to see it because Chandru's gone through a bit of a character transformation this last season, and it's been a lot of fun to witness. And Winston has been backing him all the way. And I think that whether I am listening to a match or watching it live, the amount of energy and support that Winston brings in as a manager, plus all the things that I know he's doing behind the scenes, is just incredibly impressive. And so I can't blame him for going with, or having people that he's worked with before coming back to him, and vice versa. So I'm not really surprised. Paul Oyama is a very impressive player and can hang in multiple divisions. Chandru he's a machine. That match between him and Chance was, I mean, normally when I watch an IG match, I'm hanging right there. I'm usually either on top or within a point or two. I got a little lost in that match. It went fast and it went hard, and I was very impressed. And I was like, okay, well, coming from somebody that wants to enter the Inner Geekdom division themselves, where would I love to be? I'd love to be with the person that did it most recently. You know, who's hung in the hardest IG match I've ever seen. So it'd be awesome to be there. But we're talking about his whole team. Lon, there's a lot of matches out there. Lon I haven't seen as much of as I have with Paul Oyama and Chandru, but I think that he has a really solid team. Winston had to prove himself last year, and he did that, and he showed that he can hang with the best of the best. And I'm very excited to see what they do this season.
Absolutely. Amaru, what are your thoughts on Swag?
That third spot on Swag was the one I did not know where it was going to go, because I don't think he could have gone wrong either going with Lon or sticking Ace. And I think it seems like he went with the decision to try to shore up 2 divisions instead of 1. And it makes sense because not only do you have an amazing team coming back, not only do you now have 2 top tier singles players, but Lon and one of the best, the best character in the entirety of the Schmoedown has allowed Paul to relax. And a relaxed Paul with that same mindset is dangerous.
Agreed.
Is extremely dangerous because Paul, with the jacket and the shades, he was deadly, but he just always seemed like he was stressed and pressured, and that's when you come up with a 5-point game in a championship match.
Yeah.
5, 6, whatever it is. But
it was bad.
Relaxed Paul looks at missing questions early as, all right, I'm good, I know what to do moving forward. And I think Lon is a big reason. So I think Winston ultimately made the right decision because it kind of shores up the team, but also gives you an extra thing to shore up your A player. So one of your A players, because Chandru's the champ. So
yeah, absolutely. That third spot, Chandru and Paul seemed like foregone conclusions. I think the only person who could have swiped Paul may have been Kaiser, but it seems like Paul really enjoyed working with Winston, so it makes sense. A lot of people could have gone to that third spot, and I agree. I actually do think out of all of them, despite all the conversation around all these other options, I think Lon was the right choice, especially when we look at the teams that we have thus far. Corruption is keeping 2 teams, a proven one with Corruption and a possible really good team with Deception. The Stars are keeping the Odd Couple. The Quirky Mercs are keeping Shazam. Final Exam in one season went 5-2, and both of their losses were really good, high-scoring matches. I think it aids him to keep them together rather than try and put a new team together from scratch. Honestly, the remaining factions we're going to talk about are going to have to do. So I think it was a smart decision on that end. So my first question I'll pose to you guys, and I'll go to Amaru first on this one. Obviously, kind of like what Shannon, Winston was known for having that core 5, with his other 2 being Liz and Ace. We know that he's not going to get Liz back. Do you think there is a chance that Ace will sink that low into the draft that he can get him back? Because in terms of the fan discussion, Ace has kind of disappeared a little bit just because he doesn't have a direct title shot. Do you think there's a chance he can secure Ace?
It's the same as before. Star Wars is stacked. Yes. I would be very surprised if Ace isn't available when Winston wants him. I also wouldn't be surprised if Ace doesn't go back because Winston goes with somebody else. But as I was saying that sentence, that's not the type of guy Winston is. Winston has that rapport with Ace. He knows how to work with him. So I believe he's going to be available. If Ace is not, somebody who picks him up before Winston is doing it to screw Winston and to mess with his head. That's the only reason I think that's happening.
Yeah, I think it would be a really big part of it as well. Yeah, and you could see it's not just one way. If you go back to that Inner Geekdom match where, to put it politely, Ace got pounded by Robert Parker, you can see afterwards that Ace really was hurt by that loss. And when he's speaking, it's all for Winston. It didn't really seem like he cared that he lost. He felt bad that he lost out on the points for Winston because he wasn't ready for that. And so I think there is that sense of loyalty on both sides. Jesse, go ahead. What are your thoughts on that?
100%. I would say that Winston breeds some serious loyalty. And I mean, not to just, control C, control V for Rue, but I completely agree that it could go either way. I think that throwing in the Dragon Con players into the Star Wars division really makes the draft unpredictable. And we don't know if people are going to try to trust the Dragon Con knowledge over what may be already known and proven. Because a lot of these people coming in brag constantly about beating Alex Damon. So people might be putting them higher up on the draft than an Ace Cabrera. And that might be a mistake, and that might be a mistake that Winston would be happy for these other factions to make so that he can swoop up Ace, brush him off a little bit, polish up some edges, and go back and get that Star Wars title out from under everyone that underestimated him.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, I don't even have anything to add. I think you guys make the point exactly. I think he's got a good chance, and I would like to see it because I think, like with all of the players, he really got to play with a lot. There's that rapport there. So unless you guys have anything else to kind of comment or add about swag, if you guys are good, we'll go ahead and move on to, we have 3 factions remaining, and these are the 3 that really kind of flip the script on how they were going to run things. And the first one is Sam Levine and the usual suspects. He retains Ethan Irwin, who kind of became his centerpiece last year. And obviously the other big player in that was Andrew Guy, who we know is not returning for season 8. And so he fills that slot with Liz Shannon Miller, who performed much better last year under swag than even her really good first year, and brings back Mr. Drew McWeeny, who played for 4 seasons. He played a match in season 7 due to, I believe it was personal job issues, had to step away pre-COVID, and now is back and playing under Sam once again, hopefully for more than just one match this time. Jesse, I'll go ahead and go to you. What are your thoughts on those 3 picks?
Well, I think what's really exciting about a couple of the remaining factions is there's a path of revenge that's been laid out for multiple competitors, and Drew McWeeny is one of them. And to see him return is it's very exciting. Again, it's going to be, as I said before, interesting to see how the people that have been out a couple seasons or a few seasons are going to hang with the new level of trivia. Because I think studying is not what it was in the early seasons of the Schmoedown. It has definitely ramped up to the point where it's like a second job for a lot of people, and it's not something that you can just half-ass your way through. If you do, there's a really good chance you're not going to make it very far in the league. But we know that Drew McWeeny knows what he knows. He is a fantastic Schmoedown player. So I think if you just let him know where the bar is at, have him watch some of last season's matches, get him up to snuff. I think he could be a great competitor in the league, and maybe we see a championship match this coming year. And then, Ethan Irwin as well. It's just, there's I would like to see more IG and Star Wars representation on the usual suspects, but I think that they're off to a really strong start, and there's a chance that he will be getting points, faction points all over the singles division.
Absolutely. Amaru, thoughts on usual suspects?
I think I've been getting asked who's my favorite like Schmoedown personality or player, and I completely forgot my go-to answer because I haven't seen him in a long time. It's Drew McWeeny. I saw him. I was like, I heard the music. I was so glad he was back because he is hilarious being himself. Angry Drew, chill Drew. It doesn't matter. Whatever team Sam puts together is an automatic title contender.
Yeah.
Whether you have Liz and Drew, Liz and Ethan, Ethan and Drew, it doesn't matter what combination of those 3. He has an automatic title contender in singles and teams. Period. So my whole thing with the suspects is what Jesse just said. I really am interested in what Sam is looking to do in IG and Star Wars. because also, very truthfully, he's one of the most busy managers there are. So how much unless you already on the suspects, how much do you know is he like really like putting forth is he able to help you do things, or does he have another conduit who who takes that over for him when he's busy? Um, a former IG champion, maybe. You never know. But that I am really interested because he's got singles locked up. Though, funnily enough, all three of them have had bad luck in that division.
Yep.
Irwin, Miller, and Drew have had bad luck. I'm really interested to see what he does on the other side.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this really does put a potential solid lock on singles and teams. This trio kind of is reminiscent to me of last year when there was the discussion of who should he put together as like the team to enter the tournament, because for the longest time he didn't really have a team after Andrew and Drew were split. And there was that discussion, right, of do you reunite Time Machine? Do you do Ethan and Drew? Does Matt Ashby get any say in this? This to me is that on obviously a higher caliber of play. As you said, Drew and Liz, Ethan and Drew, all three really good potential options. So the question that I want to pose around this faction is, do you guys think it was a mistake not immediately signing? And I'll go to Amaru first. Is it a mistake not signing and getting someone in the bag in terms of an IG or Star Wars player? And more specifically, IG, because we know Star Wars has a birth of talent, a lot of it unproven, but that's just kind of the league in general is unproven. There's a lot to be proven about some of these players. But IG, he is, I believe, the only manager who doesn't have somebody signed that has at least played an IG. Does that hurt him?
I will say the Mercs really don't either, though. And Bibs are the kid.
True. Okay, the Mercs. You're right. I forgot about the Mercs. So two.
That's what I was wondering about. What is he number 2 on the draft?
Sam is number 3, I believe.
Number 3.
No, Sam is 2. You're right. Kaiser is 1. Sam is 2.
He's good. He's fine. If he does not sign an IG player with his number 2 pick, then he'll have some issues. But I think that was an extremely smart pick to get Drew back, get Liz in, have half of your division ready to go before the draft. You're not going to go wrong with whoever you pick up for Star Wars with I would assume, your second pick, and get a top IG player with the number 2. And I think he made the right decision for him and his crew.
Yeah, absolutely, Jesse.
I think just looking at his picks that it shows that he's belt hungry, and there's 2 belts that he can go after, like just based off of these 3. And I think they're both very doable and feasible for those competitors. And as far as the IG and Star Wars stuff goes, there are so many competitors, but maybe he looks at the Alex Damon and the Chandru and doesn't have a name ready to go that he thinks can dethrone the current champions. Or maybe he wants to surprise and bring an unknown out of the abyss. And the benefit of that is you have a lot of these people that aren't, people don't know what they know. So you have some rookies, or maybe people that haven't played as many matches, that can go in there and just blindside the competition. So I think there's a lot of benefit to holding off on the IG and Star Wars, because there is 4 different divisions, and he has laid the groundwork for half of them already.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you're right. I think what we have here is a very Moneyball type play. Kind of like how people talked about Kaiser last year, wanted to try and market IG and get, between Zipper, Parker, Smets, obviously, a lot of options in the IG division, then with Star Wars as well. And he didn't put his, and I think this is the more general, maybe better version of it. Singles, teams not as much, but especially singles. You have 3 players who have very good records and are going to get opportunity to play. and who have opportunity to win. I think Ethan contended for a title this season. And so I think obviously the draft is where it'll be important for him in terms of getting a good IG player. I think especially Star Wars, I think he can wait and be good. But yeah, and I think obviously the other big thing for him in the draft is who does he get as a fourth top tier singles player? Because I think you're going to want a teammate for whoever's not pairing with one of those two. I think it can be very corruption-like in that way, where you could potentially get two really good A teams, and it's just who happens to get the better run that will really become the A team. So I was going to say, unless you guys have anything else to add to the suspects, if you guys have any other points you wanted to bring up.
No, though I think since we're about to talk about them, realizing that Kaiser is number one kind of throws a little bit of a wrench into Sam's plans. But I'll let you introduce that first.
Absolutely. Kaiser is coming up very, very soon. But before we do that, we'll go ahead and get in our interview with our other person on here. So Amaru, I'll do the same thing, drop you into the back just temporarily. And it is myself and Mr. Jesse Swift. Obviously, you are making yourself as known as possible. You're doing the rounds. You're putting yourself out there. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the one thing you don't have that some of the other really marketed rookies is the fan league experience, which is the one thing you have to sell, right, is that knowledge. You're going into this without a lot of game tape to show you really know what you're talking about. How do you think that can either help or hurt you?
It's become my new favorite phrase lately. A bit of column A, a bit of column B. So I will quickly reference one of the other rookies hoping to get drafted this year, and that is my friend David Campbell. And David Campbell, I thought, brought up a really good point that I hadn't thought of prior, and it is that the benefit of being drafted is if you can prove, the only person you need to prove anything to right now is the managers, not the league. You just need to have a conversation with the managers, let them screen you, test your knowledge, and then they can know what you know. It doesn't have to be public knowledge. You don't need tapes for any other competitor to be able to watch. There's a lot of benefit to coming in, and let's say that they get spinners, or you get an opponent's choice. They have no idea what to do with you. So I think that's a huge benefit. Now, maybe you're not drawing as many eyes, not being in the fan league. You don't have the support group. You don't have as many people doing the hashtag draft Jesse Swift in the comments, or reaching out to other managers. So on your own, you have to do a lot more legwork in a shorter span of time. You can't just be sharing links with people all the time and just sending them to like, watch this match. So there is difficulty with that. I've had to do a lot of messaging. I've had to try to, on the beginning side of things, really try to sell on ego and like personality, and just being like big enough to gain those conversations so I can bring people in. Like, listen, I actually do really know my stuff, so let's have a conversation. And then I've been appearing on some shows that have thrown some impromptu trivia on me, which is a lot of fun. I was just on FPP, and we did a match, which is my first match. There was a lot of really hard questions. They threw a lot of top 5-pointers in there, but I did win against somebody that has played several matches. So that was, a little notch on my belt. And I'm looking forward to gathering. I've reached out to some of the rookies in the draft and said, hey, before any of us get drafted and we're on any factions, before I have any loyalties, let's get some studying done. Let's come up with some trivia questions, and let's just run the rounds a bit, so that to each of the managers, we can really, prove ourselves and get all polished up on that. So that's just kind of what I'm doing to make up for the fact that I don't have go-to tape. Sorry if that was a long-winded answer.
No, you're good. And it hit on some of the other questions I kind of had. You can tell you've been doing the shows a lot. With that, I have one more question for you before we move on to our final two factions, which is obviously you're marketing yourself as an IG player. Even if you check the updated draft roster, you are listed as an IG sole player on there. Is there?
I was not on the first one, so that got me excited because that's what I auditioned for.
It is, yeah. No, that is updated in there. So my question to you is, do you have any outward interest in potentially moving to another league? Is there interest in doing singles and teams, or maybe making the more lateral move into Star Wars? Or is it just get the heels dug into IG and get that established?
So the short of it is 100%. Now, like I said, I don't know if I said it on the show actually, but I've been watching Schmoedown for like 6-7 years, and Inner Geekdom's really taken off. But for a while, there's just a lot of singles matches.
Yep.
And I love movies. I love films. There's all kinds of things that I enjoy watching that are not centered around Inner Geekdom. However, that is my specialty. But if there was an interest when somebody's looking at their draft picks and looking at their faction, and they're like, we need teams, and maybe there's somebody that's just really good at some of the base film knowledge, but lacking in Inner Geekdom, and like, what if we could pair a couple together and see how they do? I think I would do really well in that. Just like with anything, there's a lot of studying involved. I'm willing to do that. I've been enjoying my studying for Inner Geekdom, but I think it's definitely possible. I will say, Star Wars is a different caliber of player. It's a lifestyle. And I think the people that are playing in Star Wars don't often cross over. You don't see a lot of crossover people that play Star Wars playing in, like, I know Alex played in a couple Inner Geekdom matches, I think, but you don't see it as much.
Yeah,
I know Kalinowski's played in singles and Inner Geekdom, but yeah, Star Wars is hard. You kind of got to be all in. You can't really divvy up your focus. And I think with Inner Geekdom and singles, or I wouldn't say singles, I would say I would love to do teams or Inner Geekdom, specifically Inner Geekdom though.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think offhand, obviously, if anyone in the comments knows more, they can correct me. I believe the only two people to ever play Star Wars and play outside of it are Alex Damon, obviously, and Adam Witt, who actually started as a teams player before going into Star Wars, and he played teams again this year as well. So yeah, it is interesting. I think that's a great analysis on it. But obviously, again, not as much time today to do the full interview. Same with Amaru as well as we bring him back in. We'll go ahead and get into our final two factions. But the viewers should know, and obviously I've talked with both of you guys. I'd love to have you guys back on to do the full real interview with you guys. But that's just not what we have today. However, what we do have is our final two factions, and kind of like with the first two, we're going to do these together because I think with the storyline aspect of the Schmoedown, they are very much intertwined with each other. We have the man of many names, Tom Dagnino, coming in, his 3 signings. 4th round Roca joins him. Craig Gagne, the Barbarian, joins him. And probably maybe the biggest shocker of the night in terms of a signed player, JTE gets signed to the Finstock Exchange. And then on the other side, John Kaiser of the Dungeon brings in Dangerous Dan Merle, brings in the boss Ben Bateman, and obviously holds on to Robert Parker, who will now be his AIG player due to Kevin Smith stepping away due to health. I'll go ahead and start with Jesse on this one. What's your thoughts on both of these factions?
Oh man, like you said, they are definitely interconnected. And I just got to say really quick, what a picture of Tom.
Pull it back up again.
Yeah, man. The energy he's exuding. So I think I'll start off with the exchange. And listen, you're bringing 2 vets, and not every team has a lot of vets, and we don't know what the ultimate draft will look like. But Roca, proven. JTE has beat Jeff Snyder. Like that,
yep,
you can't say that.
Yes.
And you can say whatever you want about him saying tries to say or tops or whatever it was, but I think that there's I don't know. These guys have been playing for a long time, and even with JTE haven't stepped out for a while, he knows the game. He knows the head games. He's the heel of all heels, and
he's a piece of the game.
Yeah,
he's literally.
What's that?
He's literally a rule. He's a piece of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you can't discount that. And the Barbarian, there's not many people that have played better IG matches than the Barbarian. He knows his stuff, And when he finds a weak spot, he just really chips away at it and makes sure that he doesn't make the same mistake in the following matches. So I have nothing but the most respect for the Barbarian. Now, maybe some shady stuff happened in Spectacular. That's a conversation for another day. So it's understandable that these guys have painted a large target on their backs. For the dungeon, what more do you need to say past Dan Murrell? I mean, there is other things to talk about, but you got the GOAT on your team. That is a statement. Now, will the Exchange be regretting that moving forward? There is a good chance, and I think that could any match that is going to pit the dungeon versus the Exchange, I think is going to draw a lot of eyes and be some of the most entertaining things. John Roca and Dan Murrell pitted against each other once again. That's something that I am very much looking forward to. Ben Bateman talks a lot. Love to watch him back it up. And Robert Parker, we got an amazing IG competitor. Excited to see him improve and grow and maybe take a shot at the champ. I think that both of these guys have a very well-balanced faction with some great representation. They both have an IG player. They both have at least one big-time vet on their team. So good moves all around. Other than JTE coming back, not a lot of surprises, but fun to see.
Yeah. Amaru, thoughts?
Yeah, even though that sounds weird that the dungeon picking up Dan and Ben is not a surprise, once Dan went to the dungeon, the second Ben did that swerve, that, man, I'm sorry, you kind of dropped the ball on that swerve. But once you did that swerve, I was like, okay, well, he's going to the dungeon. That's what's happening. There's nowhere else you're going besides there. But in terms of the connection to Sam that I was saying, if Mara does not go to the dungeon with the first pick, I don't know what Kaiser is doing. Because, yes, you have Robert Parker as your AIG player, but you have two A singles players and two A teams players. You did it last year, picking up Robert Parker with Smets. How do you not do it again, having two IG players?
Mm-hmm.
Top of the fact that two of your faction mates live together. So you do not have to worry about people working with each other because they already, like, there's no way. I don't see Mara going past number one. Meaning that Sam, because if not, Mara is going to the suspects. I don't see how she goes past two. But I think it's a no-brainer to have Mara be a part of the dungeon right away. Because it just fits. Because, again, Star Wars is stacked. You can wait on that. Now, in terms of the Exchange, one thing I will say that goes against them possibly, yes, JTE and Roca are vets. But Roca has slipped a little bit over the year, and JTE has a long time out. And you can look at that one of two ways. One, that can continue. JTE's been out too long, and Roca keeps slipping. Or that puts the ultimate fire under them, and they murder everybody they go to.
Well, I can say at least outward, we've seen the fire return in the Outlaw. So we don't know what his studying is going to be like, but he's coming back hot and heavy.
But we've seen that from him before. So it can go either. The thing is with Roca, it can go either way. Because fire's there no matter what. And you can get any Roca because there's so many other players in the league that are amazing. I think the best thing that the Exchange did is lock down Craig. I think Barbarian is I think Barbarian is the best all-around player in the entire show. Period. Because IG teams and singles, he is absolutely amazing, and I don't think I've seen a guy do more legwork for his faction without being a manager than meaning studying, meaning looking at people, meaning helping people. I don't think there's another better overall. All three. He is the closest thing to Rachel since Rachel that I've ever seen. And having him there to basically be the foundation and the linchpin for the personalities that are JT and Roka is gonna be the thing that um, that gives all that makes the exchange successful this year. It's on him, and he is more than up to that charge.
How can you say something so brave yet so true?
Yeah, absolutely.
And, before he comes after me, if he happens to watch this, I love Roka, but he knows that's the truth. So again, he's either going to miss a match and be really mad, or he's going to murder everybody. That's really what's going to happen.
True. I think with Finstock, Roka and Barbarian were kind of obvious. Yeah, I think play-wise, like in-game, I think Roka did very well last year. He was consistent throughout the whole year. Unfortunately, he was consistently also losing. And that's the luck bit, right? You have to turn that around and start getting the wins instead of the losses. The play was there. He just needs to get the wins. Craig, yeah, I think Craig, Barbarian, he's great. 2 divisions last year, 2 very solid performances, both in win and loss. Overall, he did a great job. I'd be excited to see who he teams with if we get a team out of this. So this is slightly cocky. I'm going to take partial credit for JTE. It's 0.5% credit. But anyone who's been watching TMG for a bit knows we had an After Dark episode in which, due to mismanagement and scheduling, Craig and JTE ended up on the same episode. I think it's a great episode. If you guys haven't seen it, go check it out. It's a lot of just us hanging out and talking, but the 2 developed a good chemistry on screen, and I was privy, without giving away details, to being on an after-show conversation with them in which Schmoedown came up, and you could see they had a bit of an eye-to-eye understanding, and that was the first time they'd ever met each other, as far as I was aware, because obviously they weren't anywhere near each other in the horror free-for-all. So yeah, that 5% credit, I'm taking it. 12%, thank you. I appreciate that. 12%, I'll take it. No, so I'm excited to see it. Yeah, obviously, JTE kind of proved it with the horror free-for-all. He played solid in it, and I think he still definitely got it. The problem with JTE is for the last, I'd venture to say maybe 3 seasons, ever since the whole bird accident happened, every time JTE plays, it's a comeback. He played in a free-for-all after being gone for a long time. He played a return match with Lon. He had that singles match against Jonathan and the return match with Lon, and then took a long hiatus. And then he played the horror free-for-all and didn't play again for a little bit. Even so, it was publicly admitted. Well, actually, I don't know if it was publicly admitted now that I say it, but essentially,
spill the tea.
Spill the tea. Ken got put in charge of the Droogs, and obviously that was all a very last-minute happenstance situation. And he wasn't even completely aware that JTE was an option for him when he got put in charge. And that's probably part of the reason why JTE wasn't considered for the singles tournament, because he quite literally wasn't considered. His first interaction was through the horror free-for-all. And that was something that was discussed, right? You had JTE on the faction. Why wasn't he played in singles, but he was played in the horror free-for-all? And there's a bit of a behind-the-scenes thing with that. So I think JT's hungry. I think he's ready. He certainly said so on After Dark, and I know that was said on air. He's ready to come back and play, and I just hope he brings it. I don't know what the team is there. It's kind of like with Sam. There's no obvious team amongst these 3. You'd assume Roka and Barbarian, but JTE's got a hell of a teams record behind him, so you don't know who he gets put with. In terms of turning to Kaiser, Merle and Bateman are kind of a super team. Both have a lot of experience. Both have won titles in both singles, and Bateman hasn't won teams yet. But Bateman's been in title contention with both of his teams. And so certainly I think that is an interesting pick. And obviously Parker, I think Parker got unlucky coming up against Chance, who kind of played Ace's role in that tournament of upsetting everyone he played against. I think people favored Oyama slightly in that first match, and Parker certainly was the favorite in their match. But he laid a solid foundation. We know he's got the skills, and I think he'll be a good IG player for him. But yeah, I'm very interested to see where this goes. I forget where it was, but Craig on Facebook made a comment on one of the Schmoedown posts, essentially insinuating the idea of, well, we've seen Merle and Bateman on a faction before, and how did that work out for them? Which leads me to that kind of questioning for you guys. And I guess I'll throw both in one for time constraints. For the Finstock Exchange, my question is, who do you guys think the team is there? And for the dungeon, do you think Merle and Bateman will work, or will it kind of end up like the Founding Fathers, where they played well a lot of the time, but if you actually look at their record, a lot of their wins aren't against the best teams, and there was a bit of scrounge play there. I'll start with Amaru on this one.
I think the team is going to be Barbarian and Roka. I think Barbarian can kind of be the same calming presence that Lon is to Paul, and JT is just proven that he can be a teammate. So you pick up another person that can work with JTE and see where they go. Sorry, remind me the question you had for Dungeon.
Will Dan and Ben work?
Did they not work last? Oh, well. Oh, there we go. He's still in the audio. Did they not work last year? Because they both played each other twice for a title. So I don't 100% understand how that doesn't work when you have two people going for a title shot. So I guess towards the latter half of the year, Ben was kind of not as there as you wanted him to be. But yes, they will work. They should work. And I also think they would work even if they're not on a team together. If they find other people to pair with them, if they can get somebody like that is very comparable to both of them, and then you have two very dangerous teams, I don't think you're going to go wrong either way.
Sure. Jesse, what is your thoughts?
Well, I definitely think this is a question that I want to revisit post next Friday as well, and just see what the total lay of the land is, because I have it on pretty good authority that Barbarian is hell bent on getting that Inner Geekdom belt, and I think if your goal is more so than just getting faction points, and that it is you solely want one belt against somebody that has now defended and kept that belt, you have your work cut out for you. And there's only so many hours in a day. So are you going to, and Inner Geekdom also just added like 100 movies onto their list. So do you have time to try to go after both divisions when you have that mission statement? I don't know. I know Barbarian is a very capable competitor, and maybe that's something he is willing to do. Obviously, I'm talking from somebody that hasn't been in the league, so I can't say what spreading yourself that thin feels like, or how possible that it is. Right. So, I mean, out of those three, maybe Roka and JTE, but I think that the teams for that faction are possibly yet to be discovered, and we might have a much better idea next week. And as far as Merle and Bateman, Merle works. Bateman knows almost as much as he says he does, and I think that could work. And Dan is just so driven to not only destroy the competition, but specifically destroy the exchange. So I think if you put him on a team, he's going to make sure that whoever his partner is, Bateman in this case, is ready to go on that journey with him and just demolish it, or at least they're going to do their best. So I think I agree with Rue, and I think that they would work together. They have to.
Absolutely. And I was going to say, unless you guys have anything else to add, I have one more question before we finish up. Kaiser, literally in the picture, wears sunglasses. Bateman, known for wearing sunglasses. Do we see the return of sunglasses for Dan?
Nah. Nah, I think he's all focused.
Jesse?
I don't know. I think, and I've been guilty of this as well, I think the sunglasses it's burning out a little bit. I think we might see something special, something different from Dan, but I just don't know if glasses are going to be what it is.
Yeah, I probably agree. I think he'll stick with what works for him, but I think it'll be a good team either way. So that is it, guys. Those are the 8 factions to run back through the pictures. Obviously, next Friday we'll be going over the draft itself, and the lay of the land, as you guys said, will look a lot different. But before we go, I was shooting for an hour and a half. I knew this would be a bit of a longer episode. We got there. We'll go just a little longer because I have a couple of extra questions briefly to ask you guys to kind of finish it up. So normally we do on the show a 5-question interview format. Obviously, this was a little more impromptu, but I did come up with a couple questions that relate to the Schmoedown if you guys want to do these quickly. The first is our special question number 1. Heel or face, what's your preferred role? Obviously, there's a spectrum of ways that could go for you guys, but if we had to just pick heel or face, what are we feeling? I'll start with Jesse on this one.
All right. Well, one of the thoughts that I just had a couple minutes ago is very much so depending on how next week goes. These could be the last friendly words that me and Rue exchange with each other, so that will be interesting to see. I will say that, I've gotten reached out to by a couple of factions and proposed different roles to play, but coming from a little bit of a drama background, I love being the bad guy and I love making people mad. So I think I'd have a lot of fun being a heel, getting under people's skin, and it's even more frustrating when you have the knowledge to back it up.
Absolutely. Amaru?
So I gotta choose heel or face. I can't bail out on that.
I mean, you can, but that's not fun.
Oh, okay. So it's face. It's face. But if you know me, I lean face, but we'll talk shit with the best of them. So my answer's face, but don't cross me, or you'll hear about it.
Fair enough. All right, this one you guys can be a little more political on because obviously you have something to lose or gain by your questioning. But the second question is, if you got to pick your faction, who are you joining? There's no ifs, ands, or buts. All of a sudden, you guys had the power to say, I'm going here, deal with it. Where are you going based off what's set up now? I'll start with Amaru.
I am answering this question. I am answering this question fully. If there is a manager who cannot handle knowing that everybody has a favorite, why are you managing it? You know that it is, and you know that whoever you pick up is going to ride for you because you picked them up. I will continue to say this over and over and over. I am a black man looking to support black business. Swag all day. If I can pick, it's swag all day. So, but as they all know, I love all of them. I have a lot of favorites. There you go.
I feel like that's a great tagline. Black men supporting black business. Swag, swag, drip, drip.
Thank you.
I like it.
Yeah, 100% would be on top of that. All right, I'm going to ride the line a little bit. I'm going to ride between political and actually giving you an answer.
Okay.
So, I've said before, any faction I would be happy to be a part of, but we do have favorites. I could say something nice, probably, maybe, about most of these guys. But I said I'd want to be a heel, and I think one of the best opportunities to be a heel is in the exchange, because I think after Spectacular, they're not well loved by the other factions. And I talked about them having a target painted on their back. I can handle that weight, and I think that would be a lot of fun. I would love to take on a role that maybe we see Chandra taking on, or the Barbarian, where they are helping build their faction. They're helping co-manage it. And one of the instances I think would be a great opportunity for that is with Koi. I think Koi would be a lot of fun to work with, and I think there's work that could be done within the faction there to help strengthen it. I know that he has the love for the game, and I think strategy is something that he's working on improving as we approach war, we approach this season. So I would love to have an active involvement in that. And I would be remiss to not also mention Swag. I brought Winston up earlier as being probably my favorite manager or on-screen manager. I know he's putting in the work. I know he's reaching out to people. And it's just, I listen to him on SEN. He is a character, and more than a lot of the guys, he will talk the shit. But you know what? There's a reason that he is hosting the Inner Geekdom show. I want to go in for Inner Geekdom. So wouldn't it make sense that the person that I want to fall behind would be the host?
Absolutely. Both great answers. I like it. Yeah, and I think you're right to any of the managers out there. Obviously, everyone's going to have preferred favorites. It's something you hear about in sports all the time. Someone may grow up supporting one team, but you got to ride for who you're with, and you got to know that both of these gentlemen, based off what I know about them and everything we've discussed today, are clearly ready to do that to get their shot this upcoming Friday in that draft. We are a little over time, but I have one more question that might take a little bit longer to answer. Since both of you guys are IG competitors out there ready to show your skill in IG, my third question is, will you play an impromptu geek round one right now?
I don't turn down trivia. Let's go.
All right. I was like, I'm leaving that. Yep. Yeah.
I am on the road. I don't have a board, so we're gonna have to figure this out.
I was gonna say, Jesse, if you have a board, I'll just let Amaru answer first, or something right.
Yeah. Let's do that. I do have a board.
I'm ready. I have the board back here, but I'm not reaching, and I don't want to waste this.
No. Don't risk that. I think that's a good route to go. I'll go board.
The board.
Wait for me to have it up here so we know that I've answered, and then speak. I guess we'll figure it out.
Right. So we I set this up ahead of time. These questions are provided to us by our TM Geek Commissioner, Kevin Poss. Wrote up a special round one for me. I reached out to him. We got it settled because I thought this would be fun if we had it. So let's go ahead and end it. Impromptu match. We're going to try and bring the same production value. We got a scoreboard down there. Let's go ahead and get this
Fanciest thing I've seen all day.
10 questions, one or two extras in case we need them for perfect round bragging, or if we have a tie, we'll get a winner out of this. Why not? 15 seconds for each question. And Amaru, you've played. These are average TM Geek round one questions, which means at times they are a little harder than the Schmoedown. It's a bit of a reputation thing I think has developed. So no shame if you guys miss one. But let's go ahead and get into this. And one repeat for each of you should you guys need it. Obviously, tech is a thing that happens. But with that being said, if we're both ready. All right, let's do it. Question number one, in the category of Middle Earth, whose is the first voice that we hear at the start of the Lord of the Rings trilogy? Both our competitors thinking, writing, wondering. Well, probably not wondering. They know these movies definitely better than I do. All right. And since they're both ready, we'll go ahead and stop time and get into it. Amaru, obviously, go ahead and go first.
Galadriel.
All right. And Jesse. Galadriel. That is correct, guys. We go ahead. The score is 1-1 as we move on to question number 2, which is in the category of weapons, tech, vehicles, and magical objects.
Amaru looks like he loves this topic.
And the question is, what is the name of Batman's main mode of transportation in The Dark Knight Rises, as referred to by Lucius Fox?
I'm ready to go.
All right. We'll go ahead and do it. Amaru, go ahead.
The Bat.
And Jesse.
The Tumbler?
The correct answer is the Bat. The Bat is the plane that he uses to fly around. The Tumbler is another vehicle that's more featured in The Dark Knight. So 2-1 is our score.
I think I missed which one. That's my bad.
Okay. Question number 3 falls into the category of DC. And that question is, who portrays the character of Thomas Kalmaku in The Green Lantern? And talk about difficulty. The difficulty here is just sitting through this movie.
Yeah, true.
Amaru is
spelling.
I won't count you for spelling. All right, Amaru.
Taika Waititi.
And Jesse.
Taika Waititi.
That is absolutely correct. I won't dock you for spelling. That'd be unfair since one of our competitors doesn't have to spell.
He's like, oh, I voiced the spelling correctly.
You did both pronounce it correctly. We'll go ahead and move on. Question number 4 comes in the category of Star Trek. And your question is, what is the name of the ritual Vulcans undergo to prove themselves purged of all emotion? Amaru, already ready? I'll give Jesse time to finish writing. All right, and we're good. We'll go ahead and go to Amaru.
Kolinar.
And Jesse.
I mixed it up with something else, I think.
Gotcha. All right. It is Kolinar. That is correct. So the score is 4-2 as we move on to question number 5. And that is the DCEU. And the question is, in Shazam, what does the Magic 8-Ball say when he returns from the Rock of Eternity?
When who returns from the Rock of Eternity?
The question did not clarify that correctly enough, and I don't remember the movie well enough, so I'm just going to give you a different
Savannah.
That's what I assume. I'm assuming Dr. Savannah as well.
Let's go off that assumption and ride the question.
We'll work off the assumption and see where it goes. Okay. This isn't official.
I'm ready to go.
All right. You ready, Jesse?
I think so.
All right. Go ahead, Amaru.
Find us.
And Jesse.
Find us.
That was the correct answer written, so we're going to assume that we've all got it correct. All right. Fun fact about the 5th question of every round. Through every match I hosted of TM Geek, I called it the halfway point when that is factually incorrect. 4 of 10 questions answered is not half. We'll go ahead and move on to question number 6, which comes in the category of Marvel films. Your question is, in what year did X-Men The Last Stand hit theaters?
Y'all always throw a movie release date question in here.
We do. They are a valid part of film.
They are, unfortunately.
Jesse going with the big letter font on the board, I see.
Okay.
All right. About to start a count, but we got it. Amaru.
2006.
And Jesse.
2005.
2006 is the correct year that Brett Ratner disgraced us with X-Men The Last Stand.
I'm sad. I was going back and forth between 6 and 5. I was like, it's right there. It's somewhere.
Yeah.
I can tell you had the first 3 done real quickly. And then, which one?
Well, I was pretty sure it was, not in the 90s. So.
All right, guys, we go ahead and move into question number 7, which comes in the category of the Wizarding World. And your question is, what happens to Fred and George when the aging potion backfires after the Goblet of Fire rejects their names?
The only time I'm going to show off, yes, I'd put a thumbs up before you were there.
Maru is already ready. Jesse, you have 15 seconds or so to think about this one.
Can I get a repeat?
Yeah, absolutely. Your question is in the category of Wizarding World. What happens to Fred and George when the aging potion backfires after the Goblet of Fire rejects their names? All right. We'll go ahead and go to Amaru.
They grow large white beards.
And Jesse.
Ooh, that might have been too I wasn't specific enough.
They grow old. The answer we wrote is they grow old man beards. I think I need beard to give you the correct answer there. So we're going to have to go 7-3. Although, again, I think we've clearly seen these are definitely harder than Schmoedown. You guys are doing all right so far. Amaru's played before. That's why he knows this. He's just waiting for that one that will inevitably screw him over.
Yeah, I know what category that's going to come in. So.
All right. We'll go ahead and get into question number 8, which is going to come in the category of MCU. And your question is, What is the name of the actress that portrays Okoye in MCU films Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame? And again, spelling won't hurt. God bless you guys. All right, Amaru's ready. Jesse finishing up the writing. All right, we'll go ahead and go to Amaru first.
Denai Guerrera.
And Jesse.
Denai Guerrera.
That is correct, and actually mostly spelled right from what I can see. All right. 8-4 is the score at the moment as we go ahead and move into our penultimate question of this round of questions. Question number 9, which will come in the category of Star Wars. And the question is, what nickname for Jyn Erso does her father Galen give her? All right, Jesse, ready? Amaru's ready. Go ahead, Amaru.
I hope I remember that this time. Starlight.
And Jesse.
Stardust.
Damn it! I always forget that last part. Son of a...
I always remember it because of the was it Charlie Cox, Robert De Niro movie? Yeah.
Matthew Vaughn, yeah.
That will definitely help me from now on. But I always forget. It's not Starlight, and I know it isn't, and I don't have time. Damn.
Dude, man, I was like, I sweat and stop sweating like in a 1 second time span. It's like you're like Star. I was like, shit.
All right, guys, and your final question actually, fuck it. I had 12 questions here. You guys just want them all?
Yeah.
I don't have the time, unfortunately. I usually am, but I do gotta go.
We'll do one more. We'll do one more question. This one's a quick read. The category is scores and soundtracks.
Oh, cool.
And your question is, who composed the score for Watchmen?
You did give me mixed bag. Thank you. Appreciate it.
There was not a mixed bag question here. There was a quotes question, though, that was very long, so I avoided it.
Yeah.
Normally, our round ones do include plot summary questions, although for Schmoedown's sake, we avoided those.
I am like 90% sure incorrect.
All right, Amaru.
I am so glad I got that Stardust question again before an actual match. Time and base.
And Jesse.
Zack Snyder, Hans Zimmer.
No, unfortunately, it was his buddy James Gunn's pal, Tyler Bates, which sees round 1, our impromptu match, and 9-5. Solid outing from both competitors. Although, again, these are generally harder than Schmoedown round 1 questions. I failed so far in Geek, and I do well in Schmoedown. So we'll go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off because I do have to go.
Go ahead.
Wonderful. Jesse, nice meeting you, sir. Aaron, always good. Everybody else, I'll see y'all.
Good to see you.
No problem, man. There we go. We're closing out the show. Amaru finishing up. You guys can find him competing in our tournament and hopefully succeeding next week in that draft. Winston, he wants you. Want him back, man. Jesse, thank you, man, for coming on. We're excited to have you on. We'll reach out to you with both of these guys. We want them back on for future episodes to really get in and interview them. Yeah, if worst comes to worst and it doesn't work out, we can definitely put you in some of these matches, man. It'd be a lot of fun. But Jesse, where can people find you?
All right. Well, you can find me most recently on Twitter, tweeting up a storm at Jesse Swift. Simple. And then you can find me on Instagram at nifty_swifty93. And last but not least, you can find my podcast on YouTube and the various audio platforms at flick-real. And that is the Flick in Real Fancast.
Absolutely, man. And once again, thank you for coming on. Best of luck in the draft next week. Hopefully we get to bring up your name on this show. Guys, thank you so much for watching this episode. I know it's a little longer than we planned for the show to be, but there's a lot to cover, a lot to get to, and we got to it in honestly pretty decent timing. Next week, I'm debating whether or not to split the draft up into two-parter, upload 2 episodes on different days, just because that'd be a very long episode if we tried to do it in one. But we're hoping I can't confirm yet, but we're hoping to have a very special guest on. Hopefully everything works out that we get them. But other than that, with that said, thanks to Jesse, thanks to Amaru. We look forward to having you guys back in the future. Thank you to all of you guys for watching. On behalf of myself and TMG Entertainment, my name is Aaron Knoll. Thank you guys for watching SchmoeTalks. We'll see you guys next time.